¿Listos? Muchas gracias. Vamos a empezar nuestra lectura. Hoy estamos leyendo historias y poemas del Caribe que sugieren las posibilidades y las complejidades que representa descubrir el Caribe, pero no un Caribe singular. No hay un Caribe, hay muchos Caribes. There are many, many Caribbean. Es no solamente una cultura, hay muchas culturas. It's not only one culture in the Caribbean, there are many cultures. No solamente hay una lengua, hay muchas lenguas. Just think that it comes from Florida to the Guyana. It's a lot of places, inland, Colombia, Venezuela, México, Costa Rica, Panamá, and also the islands, all the Antillas, Cuba, Puerto Rico, Haití, hasta Bermuda. So, un Caribe no cerrado, sino abierto, e indudablemente un Caribe sin fronteras. Vamos a leer de Mirta Yáñez, que es de Cuba, el cuento que se llama Kid Bururú y los caníbales. Mirta nació en la ciudad de La Habana en 1947. Es profesora jubilada de la Universidad de La Habana y es novelista, poeta y ensayista y cuentista. Kid Bururú y los caníbales de Mirta Yáñez es una historia profunda que describe lo que es llegar a la madurez. La protagonista cumple 40 años y recuerda su pasado. Sin embargo, no es simplemente su pasado sobre lo que ella reflexiona, sino que con una imaginativa intensidad también regresamos a la experiencia del pasado cubano, el panorama y los sonidos de la calle, el bus número 19.
My 40th birthday celebrations began shortly after midnight with the unmistakable sound of the tape recorder button. Very softly, so as not to wake up the children, Strawberry Fields Forever was playing. I listened as it filled the room, the sheets, and every nook and cranny of my entire being. This is my first gift, said Marcelo. Another familiar sound awakened me early that morning. Marcelo was working relentlessly on the car in a desperate attempt to get it to start. The window was open, and as I lay in bed, I could see him soiling the lily-white bathrobe with the dirty engine oil. Though disheartening, this image was not as bad as that of the children standing stiffly in the doorway singing happy birthday, all with a ridiculous air about them. Get ready, everybody. We are going to take the bus, shouted Marcelo as he whizzed past in the corridor. He stopped for a second and asked, I'm taking the kids out. What are you going to do with the day all to yourself? I racked my brain trying to find an answer. Interview a tribe of cannibals, compose an ode, and make a trip to Mars, I finally responded. Marcelo shook his head from side to side in disbelief and said, okay, but just be back early.
When they left, I collected the cigarette butts that had piled up in the ashtray during the night, threw them in the wastebasket, made the bed, and then put on a pullover and a pair of jeans that looked like they had been around, at least since World War I. I looked outside. There was barely any sunshine and a few fluffy clouds floated by lazily, so I decided to take a special route, the entire line of the number 19 bus from start to finish, from the bus stop all the way to the terminus. All those years at university, the first love affair, visits to Grandma on Queen Street, the film library, the marriage to Enriquito, the career, the job at the hospital, my old life getting on and off the number 19 bus. It was quite a long walk to the nearest station. I had done it many times before. Oof. Today I had 22 fine lines around my eyes to accompany me. Crow's feet, to put it bluntly, that I didn't have back then. A few extra pounds and some cavities topped it all off. What worried me, though, was the breathlessness. And so the first real question I asked myself while waiting for the bus was this. How much can one person change in a few short years? When Robin the cat died, I think I became aware of the exact day my youth ended. I had already started to worry about how to recognize early on the first day of one's old age.
The bus had changed as well. It was now blue, freshly painted with shiny new fenders. It looked sturdy though. I will admit that I preferred the others. Those old pieces of junk with their broken windows and leaks. They made a frightening sound that seemed to come from their very bowels and looked like they were going to fall apart at any given moment. The old number 19s from back when I was a teenager had something lifelike about them. Whenever I saw the front part coming onto Zapta Street, it would always make me think of some antediluvian animal cautiously sticking out its nose. Maybe they had gone to rest in some secret ossuary after having shaken so vigorously through the streets of Havana. I sat in the right window seat in the back row. I had a few doubts, but finally I decided on the right-hand side. You'll soon see why. After leaving the bus stop, the first thing that catches the eye is the sports center and the Fuente Luminosa. They were over to my left, so I had to strain my neck a little to see the guys running on the field in their shorts and blue overalls used for training, as well as the couple making out in the BDP further on.
I don't remember who Paulina was, but she must have had quite a rear end for the fountain to be named after her. It was almost 11 in the morning, and ever since the first wave of memories hit me, I've had to suppress the desire to light up a cigarette. Perhaps it was the stillness and the fresh air that reminded me of those mornings spent preparing for exams with tons of coffee, cigarettes, and buttered biscuits. I made a mental note of the fact that I could no longer work late into the wee hours of the morning without my brain starting to shut down. Another bad sign, I said to myself. The passengers on the first part of the route are usually very quiet. I looked at their faces and tried to guess. Athlete, nurses coming back from their shift at the surgical clinic, old ladies going on their routine visits to the cemetery. Whether full or empty, the number 19 would roll along silently until it got to the zoo. Luckily, the park is to my right and I can see it clearly in spite of the fence and the trees. Obviously, I can't see the lion's cage from the street, but if I'm lucky, I can just hear their roars above the sound of the traffic. Make some noise, Mr. Lion. Today's my birthday. The bus slowed down and then finally came to a halt at the bus stop by the park. It was only then that I could hear the unmistakable sound of the lions roaring loudly and threateningly. I let myself get a bit alarmed, a little like that first special night when I slept with Pavel and the lions. Woke us up just before dawn.
From that point on, the number 19 filled with children and a young girl on her way to the university. A group of about 5 or 6 of them noticed my faded jeans and snickered under their breath. At that age, 40 seems such a long way off. I think they must have told themselves that that was the outfit which I had chosen to run away from the old people's home. The Nuevo Vedado stretch was very short but pleasant, while 26th Avenue was long and wide with bends going up and down like a roller coaster. One of the boys put on a portable radio. There goes the trumpet, the drawn out, ooh, ooh, until the Benny's voice burst in singing, life if you could just feel that happy feeling. Was he asking me this question? Will my poor heart still be able to go on a beating strong? I hear it, I feel as though it's going to burst out my chest. I swallowed 6 times in a row so as not to have a heart attack. That's better. Easy does it. Easy there. The bus then went down Zabata Street, straight alongside the cemetery. I looked in and there I was at my grandma's funeral or sitting on the shady benches with Abel when I'd go to study with him on afternoons. Fulanito Zutano Melgario. I read the headstones quickly, almost without realizing that I was reliving an old habit from so many years ago.
The old woman got off near the corner of 23rd and 12th, and a very mixed bunch of passengers get on. It's almost midday, and these are the ones that run off to have lunch at home before having to rush back to work soon after. This is when the distant sort of summer starts, and as the bus goes along El Badado, it grows louder. This has always been my favorite neighborhood, especially on Sundays when it takes on a whole different face from during the week. Before leaving El Badado, the number 19 goes by the hospitals. Little by little, the bus gets hotter and fuller. The trip becomes less and less enjoyable. I noticed a change in passenger faces. They seem worried or lost in thought, displaying all the while a kind of inner fever that I had long forgotten. How could one possibly lose all these things learned in one's youth? Locked away in the lab, in the house, and which drawer was sensitively misplaced. I cursed myself mentally for not having safeguarded the memory that I was once here on this bus, sandwiched between two passengers with 3 parcels in each hand, trying to get to the back door, worried because visitors at the hospital would soon be over.
Suddenly at the bus stop on G and Boreos, 2 people I know got on. I hadn't seen them in ages, but they were still exactly the same, Victor and Rico. I acted on a hunch and hid behind my shades. I didn't want them to see anything in the world. I knew Victor well because he'd been neighbors since childhood. He had one claim to fame. When we were in our second year at university, Victor took a pair of scissors, went out and cut off the hair of the little rich kids in Warampa. I don't need to say anything more. Victor himself tells the story of how he twisted one boy's arm as he gave him a crew cut. He wouldn't sit still, he always explains. That was our first and last fight. Then he dropped out of school and moved away. I can't help but remember all this now as I look in the long dark hair blowing gently in the wind. I know Enriquito better. We were married for 7 years. He was dressed very elegantly in a suit and tie, even though it was noon and the sun was beating down mercilessly. Brains of beauty. Enriquito is what you would call a hunk. He had always had the body of a wrestler. As for his face, don't even mention it. His voice could be heard above the noise and the buzz. I had loved Enriquito dearly, but it was one misfortune after another from start to finish. I knew about his affairs, but I turned a blind eye. Pretending that he was cheating on me with 20 women at the same time was the only thing that gave him a bit of self-confidence. The annoying part was that sometimes those girls would make comments about how well endowed he was. For some reason unknown to me, he couldn't perform, almost never. His aggressive nature, his endless visits to the doctor, his unfulfilling affairs, he suffered a lot. And I went to Tanzania to work for 2 years. Enrico showed me one face in public, and we were back at home. He declared, "I don't like letting you go. I'm the boss here, and I'm the man of the house." When I got back from the trip, Enrico had filed for a divorce, in spite of everything we wept.
The bus stopped noisily in front of the veterinary school, and the 2 young women got off with a poodle. Enrico was the first to attack. He quickly struck out his broad athletic chest and took the dog in with his arms. It looked innocent, chivalry. Victor, who was further down the corridor, elbowed his way through until he found a better spot. Neither of them had changed very much. Theirs was one of those friendships based on mistrust. Victor had a sort of everyday jealousy towards Enriquito. One brought on when you see someone with your very own shortcomings who is more fortunate in life. As for Enriquito, with a degree, a career, and a good salary, he had an unhealthy admiration for success of Victor's marriage. Around Rena and Todd, a man got on, a very skinny black man whose movements were disjointed and evasive. He was wearing a clean but very worn cotton shirt. His tattered pants were patched up at the back, and his shoes, dusty with holes, were in the worst state of all. He was carrying one of those mysterious paper bags, the ones you never quite seem to know exactly what is in them, under his arm, together with a handful of yellowish magazines. Whenever I see a black man with such gray hair, I think he's at least 200 years old. Nevertheless, the most curious thing about him was his lean, drawn cheeks, bloodshot eyes, or markedly broad nose, and a mouth that seemed to be set in raw flesh. I'll never forget that mouth, wide, the most noticeable part of his face because it kept trembling and opening incessantly. When it did so, you could see his sad, bare guns. When the black man got on, there was quite a stir, although I can't really say why right now. The first voice I heard was the driver's. He didn't seem to be talking to anyone in particular, but really and truly, he was talking to the black man. All boxers are good for nothings. The man reacted instantly. He sprung up violently. That's right, he screamed sharply and hastily. There was general laughter, which surprised me. I smiled as well. I thought I was witnessing an old joke played out 1,000 times before. I still had no idea what was going to happen.
Another man interjected saying, "Kid Gavilan knocked you out." The man started to jerk his arms about wildly, and a strange sort of scream escaped his even stranger mouth. That's a lie. Suddenly, I recognized Victor's voice saying, "Stop your lies. Kid Gavilan nearly killed you." He guffawed loudly while looking at the young girls with the poodle. The man seemed to be on the verge of tears. Liar. I was the one who knocked out Kid Gavilan. Victor took up where Enriqueta left off. Don't overdo it, Kid Baruru. The dead can't talk. The black man who Victor had called Kid Baruru pretended to start a fight, and the atmosphere in the bus got even more charged. I looked around in amazement. Wasn't anyone going to stop this? We crossed Galliano Street and the crowd was unbelievable. The sweat and exhaust fumes had managed to rumple the faces of the restless passengers on the number 19. Someone shouted a greeting from the pavement. The poodle suddenly started to bark. A siren could be heard in the distance. There was a moment of intense noise and yet of silence. Kid Baruru managed to sit at the back. He held his head between his knees and everything about him looked like that of a boxer waiting in his corner for the sound of the bell. That was when I heard Enriqueta's voice saying, "Kid Gavilan took away your wife."
Kid Bararu was as if struck by lightning. He left his spot and moved up the aisle. The passengers didn't seem so cheerful anymore. Things were going too far. There was a disapproving murmur through. No one could stop Enrique, who was repeating from his seat in a sing-song manner. Kid Gavilan took away your wife. He then ended by saying, "Kid Baruru, you're not a man." The black man pounced on Enriqueta and aimed at his jaw with a left jab that went flying. The girl with the poodle let out a few coquettish shouts. Victor jumped in after this attempt at a fight. Kid Baruru was thrown off the bus at the Parque de la Fraternidad bus stop. He stayed right there, shaking one of his sorry fists while the other remained guarding his hip in a position that was reminiscent of his glory day in the ring.
I closed my eyes because I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I reproached myself, my passivity, my silence. And this is when I officially asked myself another question. Is it inevitably that time eventually beats us down? I looked up and Victor and Enriqueta were already getting off the bus, together with the young girls and the poodle. They were all still laughing. The number 19 turned onto Avenida del Puerto and its passengers started to get off. When I least expected it, I got an odor of petrol and rotten wood, and I heard the splash of the waves against the seawall of the Malecón. The bay was to my right, and that's why I preferred this seat. I had met Marcelo in Casablanca, and we also used to take a number 19 bus. But not even this memory, the best of the lot, could erase the image of Kid Baruru. There was a party at my house that evening. The guests were Marcelo and the children. After the ice cream and cake, Marcelo asked me, "So were you able to get in touch with the cannibals today after all?" I scratched my nose to buy a little time and replied, "Yes, at least 2 of them. I also traveled very far, much further than Mars, and I composed an ode to Kid Baruru." To whom? To Kid Baruru. You have to take the bus if you want to meet him.
Sí, nostalgia. Mama, Borquín me llamo, este país no es el mío. Borquín es pura flama, aquí me muero de frío. Tras un futuro mejor, el nativo dejé y mi tienda Levante en medio de Nueva York. Lo que miro en derredor es un triste panorama y mi espíritu reclama profunda nostalgia, perdido el retorno al patrio nido. Mama Borquín me llama. En donde aquí encontrar como en mi suelo criollo, el plato de arroz con pollo, la taza de buen café, en donde ver radiantes en su atavio, los mozas ricas en brío, cuyas miradas deslumbran, aquí los ojos no alumbran. Este país no es el mío. Si escucho aquí una canción de las que aprendí en mis leers o una danza de Taveras Campos o Dueño Colón, mi sensible corazón de amor patrio más inflama y heraldo que fiel proclama este sentimiento santo viene a mis ojos el blanco, por es para flama en mi tierra que primor en el invierno más crudo, ni un árbol se ve desnudo, ni una vega sin verdor. Viva en el jardín, la flor camina, perlero, el río, el ave, en el bosque umbrio, canta su canto, abriario, y aquí, la nieve es escuderio, aquí muero de frío.
Poema de la Madurez. Durante el día las hojas son más disparadas hacia sus bordes. Esto es fácil de comprar en otoño cuando el aire es conmovedoramente nuevo y herido por las muchas cosas vencidas. En otoño estoy junto a la dulce violencia que reúnen los árboles alrededor de sus pudientes troncos. Hay pudientes y coactivos de su propia salud han de olvidar su gracia el año de llevarla. Oh hábil madurez elegida por los frutos, es a ti a quien canto. Eres imperfecta durante el día si la luz es un ser que reduce el alma. Tú sabes que la luz y el alma son regalo de Dios en este mundo de hombres y mujeres. Pobre y pequeña mí, nos conduces a la manera libre del espíritu, como el aire siempre vivo o siempre muerto, al otoño callado. Como la idea que nos posee sin oradarnos, sin proponerla, tus lecciones, tú grabas, coincides, separada de tus cuerpos y vamos ocupándote con prodigalidad y avaricia con esa ternura obligada de la vida mortal, porque nosotros hemos de morirnos alguna vez. Yo solo pido hacerlo durante el día. En el caben la prodigalidad y la avaricia de morirse con verdadera pasión. Cuando voy hacia los campos verdes y brillantes y mis pies olan todas las posibilidades del rocío, comprendo mejor porque permanecías al margen de las perseveras llamas. Si pienso y entonces es que me ofrezco a llevar el dulce deseo de Dios y te encuentro sobre los ríos imparcialmente credos con su muerte ligera, te encuentro en el aire y en los árboles que ponen en su alrededor un modo distinto de nombrarnos, pero es en el sueño cuando te doy empleo, es por el sueño que obtienes toda muchedumbre hermosa, semejante al otoño, semejante al júbilo impuesto a la tierra año tras año. Es con el sueño que guardas es fidelidad distinta al hombre y a la vida, y eres comparable a los días en que las hojas beben de su muerte. También en otoño conocemos cómo los frutos acabaron con su sombra, temerosas de la nada, y nos vamos sin palabras hacia el árbol conocido, hacia los ríos conocidos, hacia los eres conocidos. Entonces olvidamos como darle a Dios, que no es el sino la vida lo importante. Entonces son nuestras las cosas jubilosas de las ramas casuales, y hallamos el limpio espíritu de la noche, fuimos del abandonado del Padre, al abandonado de todos y de todo.
El regreso. He arriesgado la vida debajo de plafones agrietados. He abierto las puertas más ocultas y escuchado en los pasillos el frágil ruido de mis pasos. He recorrido las calles más enversadas sin dudar que cada tenue huella mía será, si ya no ha sido borrada por la lluvia. Incontables veces he expuesto el cráneo al golpe contundente de los meteoritos. Largos caminos tendidos de crepúsculos me conducen a la última pisada. En falso y solos quedamos en este salón universal de trozadero con el caprichoso huella de su voz, con su peculiar respiración del verbo.
La garza. Es la mañana azul y una grata. pincelada de rosa en la ribera, la garza, melancólico y austera. Onde en las ondas su inflexible pata. En aquel semicircular de plata. Frente a los cielos, bebe en sol y espera. El pez de apalo y oro se dijera que su pico se tiñe de escarlata. Inmóvil, fija y alargando el cuello por la atención en la virtud del día. Tiene la majestad de un siglo feo, rodeado del lívido peluche, del manglar fresco, de la ribera umbría, es rara olla en anticuado estuche.
El regreso. He arriesgado la vida debajo de las zonas argiatos. He arredo las poetas más oclatas y recuerdo en los laos. El frágil ruido de mis pasos. He recorrido las clases más enredadas, sin dudar, que cada tenue a la mía será, orada por la nueva. Incontables veces he expuesto el crimen, el golpe contuende de los méritos, largos caminos tendidos de la corpúsculos y conducían a la última pesada en falso, y solos podemos en este salón universal de recadero con el caprichoso fuera de su voz, con su peculiar respiración del verbo.
La nada, estupor, solo estupor, ni una olla, ni un hermano, suelta está y la mano en la esencia de color. Tedio, extático, el amor de las otras, la esperanza detenida. El hombre alcanza sordidez entre la cera y cara la bandera en el suelo, no se avanza.
Danza negra, calabajo e bambú. Bambú e calabar. El gran porco dice, tu kutu, la gran porca dice, to ko tu. Es el sol de hero que arde en Tombuctú. Es la danza negra de Fernando Poo. El cerdo en el fango brun. Pru, pru, pru. El sapo en la charca suena cro, cro, cro. Calabo e bambú, bambú e calabar. Rompan los yunques en furiso los gongos trepidan en profunda o. Es la raza negra que ondulando va en el ritmo gordo del marianda. Lleguen los batucos a la fiesta ya. Danza que se danza la negra se da. Calibo e bambú, bambú e caliba. El gran coroco des tucutu, la gran coroco des tucutu. Pasan tierras rojas, islas de Betún, Haiti, Martinica, Congo, Cameroon. Las papimentosas Antillas del Ron y las actuales islas del volcán que en el Grayson del canto se dan calibo e bambú, bambú e calibo. Es el sol de hero que arde en Tombuctú. Es la danza negra de Fernando Poo, el alma africano que vibrando está en el ritmo gordo del Marianda. Calibo e bambo, bambo e calibo. El gran corco das tu futu, la gran corco das tu futu.
Muate Beke William. Ever la muate sem razão pedindo deve cruz azul lágrima. Com algo de sonrisa e mudo ao entre los hombres. Pasa. Abre el niño y con el niño hacerle un arco de esperanza que ya gravita de la brodo o su presencia invitada Eva de Nobel eclesiástica riendo la mañana. Su doce amiato en el ave es su loma. Desde en la pestaña se parece a jugar sobre la lluvia que ríos trabajar. Since de espuma regalando a el azul de su estatua. Corona esa libre procedista del mar que la engaña. Jordan del humo que revela al tiempo las balas retratadas.
Corte de otoño. En el lama de los frutos está el otoño, y en el hora de la tarde va la muerte por la árboles. A las ciegos ríos toyos va la muerte. Son los árboles eternos con sus pollas eternas en el air deseas. O en el polvo que se acota en las raíces de su muerte. Son tus trenzas en el fuego de la tarde, dos canciones de Eva muertas, como alas en el fuego de Los Ángeles. Cayó un ángel, sus alas en la tierra está suspensas. Cae un ángel en las nubes de la tarde, y en la alma de frutos. En el vientre que golpea a la entrada de las puertas de la muerte. Está el ángel en el beso de tu boca, en el perpada azul de esta estrella, y un agua de la aurora igual la noche clamorosa de la lucero. Son tus ojos en el aire de los cielos, despregantes des hermosas iglesia de las aves, en la luz de las yardas. Hay un ángel que dijera que los ángeles caerán de las mañanas de los días de soledades, que reposa en el profundo de la tierra, en la tarde del otoño, van los cantos de ero en torres y tentas manos como rosas de una oculta primavera. Calla un ángel y la tarde de otoño se ha dormido.
Negro sin sonrisa. Negro triste, tan triste que en cualquier gesto tuyo puedo encontrar el mundo. Tú que vives tan cerca del hombre, sin el hombre una sonrisa tuya me servirá de agua para llevar la vida que casi no se puede llevar con otra cosa. Quiero llegar a ti, pero llego lo mismo que el río llega al mar. De tus ojos a veces salen tristes océanos que en el cuerpo te caben, pero que en ti no caben. Cualquier cosa tuya te pone siempre triste, cualquier cosa tuya, por ejemplo, tu espejo. Tu silencio es de carne, tu palabra es de carne, tu iniquidad es de carne, tu paciencia es de carne. Tu lágrima no cae como gota de agua, no se caen en el suelo las palabras.
The same one. Time is up too. Oh. Hey, he stole my poem, the time is up, so. Right in the back.